evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Johanna Chan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Fears of more silent transmissions in Hong Kong after a pet shop worker was found with a strain linked to the Delta variant. Novak Djokovic is officially out of the Australian Open after court rules against his favour. And Pacific nations remain on heightened alert following huge volcano eruption near Tonga. Authorities are scrambling to find out how a pet shop worker contracted a mutant strain of COVID, which is linked to the Delta variant. Meanwhile, experts believe a Pakistani woman may have been infected at a quarantine hotel, which is found to have poor ventilation system. Among the confirmed local cases today was a 43-year-old Pakistani woman who returned from Pakistan while transiting in Dubai.
She finished 21-day quarantine hotel already, so she's allowed to go home. And the day 26 test is additional precaution, for test. So she's allowed to go out, but she did stay at home with her children.
Her husband and 4 children have been quarantined. Health officials also paid a visit to the Silka Seaview Hotel in Yau Ma Tei this afternoon, after suspecting some guests had infected each other. 5 people who have stayed there have now tested positive for COVID. Government advisor Yun Kwok-yong was not satisfied with the hotel's ventilation, saying the virus may have traveled down the corridor and cross-contaminated rooms. Some of the guests now have to stay for 2 more weeks as a precaution. Meanwhile, a 40-year-old airport worker who cleaned cargo planes has been identified as an import-related case after her genome sequence was similar to overseas infections. But authorities are on high alert after a woman who worked at Little Boss Pet Shop in Causeway Bay was found with the L452R strain of COVID. That means the 23-year-old who did not travel recently most likely contracted Delta, and not the prevailing Omicron strain. While she often had meals in the shop, she dined at the Yau Ma Tei outlet of hot pot chain Hai Di Lao with 4 friends, as well as 2 restaurants on Belcher Street in Kennedy Town. She also stayed at a Wan Chai hotel with a friend on Monday, but did not use the communal facilities there. Her family members, colleagues, and other close contacts were sent to quarantine. Authorities said the animals in the shop will either be cared for by friends or by the Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department. A 3rd round of mass screening is underway in Zhuhai after an 8th Omicron patient was recorded. High-risk Nanping County was locked down while other residents were told not to leave the city bordering Macau. Overall, there were 65 new local cases on the mainland yesterday. 33 of them were in Tianjin, while Henan province added 29 patients. Strict measures were enforced in Beijing after the first local Omicron case was detected in the capital. But there are signs of further relief in Xi'an, which reported just 1 additional infection. Overseas, Novak Djokovic has been deported from Australia after a court upheld the government's decision to revoke his visa. That 11th-hour ruling effectively denies the world's #1 of a chance to clinch a record 21st Grand Slam title. Sarah Wong reports.
The protracted legal battle that captured the attention of the world has finally come to an end. An Australian federal court gave its final word on Novak Djokovic's application to appeal his 2nd visa cancellation in days.
The orders of the court are: 1, the amended application be dismissed with costs, such costs to be agreed or failing agreement assessed. 2, reasons to be published at a later date.
In an unanimous verdict, 3 federal judges decided that it was not the court's role to judge the merit of the government's decision to revoke the tennis star's visa. That means Djokovic will not be able to defend his Australian Open title, and his shot at a record 21st Grand Slam must wait a few months. Ahead of deportation, the world #1 said he was extremely disappointed, but respected the ruling. I will cooperate with the relevant authorities in relation to my departure from the country, Djokovic said in a statement. His supporters reacted with fury.
It's disgraceful. How did the first court ruling in his favour, but now it ruled against him? Why? Because it's all politics.
Novak not deserve this, like what I said. Novak coming here to play tennis. I can't understand what kind of threat Novak to this country, to me, to you, to all of us.
The ruling was welcomed by Prime Minister Scott Morrison, who is responsible for some of the world's strictest COVID rules, while polls indicated that most Australians stood by his decision to send Djokovic home. Critics accused him of using the episode to boost his popularity ahead of elections. As the debate intensifies, the first Grand Slam of the year will open tomorrow without the biggest name in the sport, perhaps even longer, as deported individuals cannot return within 3 years. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
In response, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić accused Canberra of launching a witch hunt to torture Djokovic.
For 10 days they were tormenting, dare to say even torturing, because it was not only intellectual but physical torture against Novak Djokovic. And there was something else which was even worse. That was witches hunt organized against Novak Djokovic. It's not Novak that is humiliated. I think Australian authorities humiliated themselves with this kind of procedures pursuing against Novak Djokovic.
The tsunami threat around the Pacific has started to recede after a volcano erupted near the island nation of Tonga yesterday. No injury or death was reported due to a communication blackout, but countries straddling the Pacific Ocean are on heightened alert. Sarah Wong reports.
This was the moment the Hunga-Habai volcano erupted for the second time in 2 days. The blast near the tiny South Pacific island nation of Tonga was so violent that it could be heard in Fiji and even as far away as the U.S. state of Alaska. Its sheer force sent large tsunami waves crashing ashore, triggering floods in low-lying areas, including in the Tongan capital Nuku'alofa. New Zealand, which is over 2,000 kilometers away, hoisted a tsunami advisory, warning coastal residents of strong and unusual currents and unpredictable surges. It also put the military on standby to offer assistance, including helping to restore communication links and relieve a water crisis.
A clear indication that has come from Tonga is the need for water. The ash cloud has, as you can imagine, caused contamination. That's on top of already a challenging environment in terms of water supply.
Neighbouring Australia also pledged aid for Tonga while closely monitoring the situation. Japan, which endured a devastating tsunami in 2011, evacuated residents on the Pacific coastlines after warning of waves as high as 3 meters. China's east coast has detected tsunami waves, with Zhejiang province recording the strongest reading, while the United States warned of strong currents, waves, and flooding on its west coast. Emergency warnings also sent holidaymakers and local residents in Chile speeding away from the shores. This was so far the biggest eruption from the volatile Tongan volcano, which geologists described as absolutely unique.
Now, we know volcanoes generate tsunamis. One of the most well-known is 1883 in Indonesia, and it killed 36,000 people. But this type of event in this region is a massive surprise.
In late 2014 and early 2015, a series of eruptions at the volcano created a small new island and disrupted international air travel to Tonga for several days. Sarah Wong, HKIBC.
Back in Hong Kong. With just months to go before the administration expires, the city's welfare chief suggested letting his bureau take point in poverty alleviation. The financial chief, meanwhile, wanted more public input on whether he should bring back the electronic consumption vouchers. With his fifth and final budget due next month, Financial Secretary Paul Chan took to his blog to update the public on his progress. Riding on a steady economic recovery, he said the final deficit of the current financial year will be far smaller than the original estimate of $101.6 billion. A positive outlook for the housing market led to bumper revenue from land sales and premiums, he revealed, while stamp duties from a red-hot stock exchange also exceeded expectations. Looking forward, the financial chief remained tight-lipped on whether there will be another round of handouts, be it cash or electronic consumption vouchers. Chan acknowledged that opinions were mixed. Many urged him to dish out sweeteners again, but others felt the money should be better spent elsewhere. There was also debate on one-off relief measures, such as tax breaks, as they do not benefit everyone. Without arriving at a conclusion, Chan asked for people's understanding, as there was no one-size-fits-all policy, but pledged to find the right balance. Labor and Welfare Chief Law Chi-kwang meanwhile called for public opinion on Chief Executive Carrie Lam's plan to restructure the government. He specifically focused on poverty alleviation, saying currently there is no single borough in charge. Instead, related policies are supervised by a 12-member Human Resources Planning and Poverty Coordination Unit under the Chief Secretary's office. In terms of execution, it is a concerted effort between the Home Affairs, Education, Food and Health, and the Transport and Housing bureaus. Law said while he was in favor of the Labor and Welfare Bureau taking stewardship of poverty alleviation, the ultimate decision rests on the next chief executive.
On to the weather now. Tomorrow will be mainly cloudy with 1 or 2 rain patches in the morning and at night. Temperatures will range between 16 and 20 degrees. Cool and cloudy on Tuesday before the sun returns midweek. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for this Sunday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Johanna Chan. Thanks for watching. Good night.